Let's start with the tax burden, OK? So last time around, at the time of the election and obviously when we were looking at all those manifestos, we looked a lot at this chart, didn't we? The higher this line is, the more taxed the economy is. So the higher the level of taxes as a percentage of GDP. And bear in mind, the UK is actually a bit lower than many other European countries. And this was where things were heading, on the basis of the last budget. So the one from Jeremy Hunt. Those were the Conservative plans. And Labour's plans in the manifesto would have seen that line go a weeny bit higher, a few pixels higher. Here is what we have just heard about. So just look at how much higher that line is. And that may not look like an enormous difference, OK, between those two lines, but believe me, it is. And actually, when we take this and just go back through history to the 1940s, well, remember how not that long ago people were saying, we might be heading for the highest tax burden since the 1940s, since maybe 1948. This is higher than that. It's higher than anything we've got in comparable record, these taxes. So this is massive in terms of the nature of the state and changing the nature of state and changing the nature of taxation. But, of course, alongside that, you've got extra spending. So the shape of the state also changes as well. But just to kind of underline this point, you heard from Rachel Reeves at the start of that budget statement. You're talking about £40 billion. Actually, it's over 40 billion. I looked at the small print. It's just a bit over 40 billion pounds of taxes. This is showing you every different budget going back to the 1970s and how much they've either raised taxes, so the bar going above the line, and how much they have lowered taxes. And here, and so far, the kind of record recently, or at least in recent decades, that's 1993. So after Black Wednesday, that is John Major's government there. Here is what has just happened. Look at that bar there. So that's Keir Starmer, that's Rachel Reeves. And again, if we draw the line back, that is the biggest rise in taxes that we've had at any fiscal event, any single fiscal event, going all the way back to 1993. And remember, that was kind of a crisis budget following what happened in Black Wednesday. So the tax picture is pretty stark, but obviously there's extra spending. And one of the things that Rachel Reeves wants to spend more money on is investment. And you get a real sense of the comparison here between the previous plans and her plans. When you look at public investment, and we'll have plenty more charts on this, but this is the start, that's showing how investment was going to go down under the Conservative Party with the previous plans. Now look at where it's heading with Rachel Reeves. So it's heading to a kind of higher level than it was going to be in the previous plans. Final thing to just go through, because obviously, we get these numbers every time. This time around, it's perhaps slightly less striking than those big tax numbers, so we put it at the end. But the growth picture as well, this is the latest set of growth forecasts, or rather, this is the growth forecast last time around from the Office of Budget Responsibility. Growth getting stronger and then going down in the future, resting around kind of 1.7%. Take note of that, because that matters. How fast is the economy growing? How much better off are we getting each year? That's important. The latest numbers, let's bring them on. You can see it's a bit of an upgrade the first 2 years. But here's what's striking. Look, a downgrade in 2026. Downgrade in the future years. It's actually a weaker economy than was previously forecast. That's significant, because there's a Labour Party which has said it wants to generate growth. But actually, in the long run, it's had a growth downgrade here from the Office of Budget Responsibility. And the final thing to note, it's the kind of corollary, in a way, of what we were talking about with taxes. Higher taxes, but also higher borrowing. And part of that borrowing is going to spend on that investment. So this is showing you what the Conservative Party were planning to do with public borrowing. So this is public sector net borrowing in the future. As you probably heard from the Chancellor there, she's changed her fiscal rules, so she has more room to borrow, and she's using that room. So look at these bars. More borrowing in every single year of the forecast horizon. So it is a government which is taking on more debt, it's raising taxes considerably, but by the same token, it's spending more as well. So as Beth was saying a moment ago, this is really the true colours of a very confident Labour Party. But I think what's striking, Sophie, is you saw the comparison there between what we were hearing about in the manifesto and what we're actually kind of getting in terms of the numbers here. And that comparison's really stark.